I'd like to welcome everyone to the William S. Paley Television Festival. My name is Ron Simon. This is our 18th year. And one of our mandates of the festival is really to look at shows that have changed television. And there's no doubt The Survivor is one of the major new developments in television programming. The show was like a tidal wave when it aired last summer, almost bringing a whole new genre to television, the whole idea of reality programming. And columnists, critics are still debating what is reality on television. Survivor brought elements of certainly the game show with the narrative of the daytime soap opera, with the confessional on television, and a little bit of cinema verite documentary. So tonight we're here to really take a look at how Survivor changed television and bringing a whole new format to television. The one thing that Survivor did was sort of bring back the old notion of great event television. Many critics have lamented the fact that television no longer brings every demographic into its audience. Survivor certainly did. 57 million people watched the final episode. That was big event television, on par with the Super Bowl and the Academy Awards. It's our pleasure to have the three people here that have really are the masterminds who define Survivor. And I think that the only thing we've learned so far this season is there's only one show equal to Survivor 1, and that is Survivor 2. And we'll look at that tonight. So I'd like to introduce our three panelists, and after the screening of the very first episode of Survivor, we'll meet and we'll discuss the whole phenomenon with them. First, I'd like to introduce the host of Survivor, Jeff Probst. Jeff also is host of VH1's Rock and Roll Jeopardy. He's been doing that for 4 seasons. Prior to Survivor, he hosted a variety of television series, including the shows Back Chat and Sound FX on the FX network. He is also one of the original correspondents for the entertainment news show Access Hollywood, for which he traveled 300,000 miles in 2 years to conduct celebrity interviews. In addition to that, he recently wrote and directed his first feature film, Finder's Fee, starring James Earl Jones, Robert Foster, and Eric Palladino. Please welcome the host, Jeff Probst. Now the master strategist, the ultimate survivor, is Richard Hatch. Richard, with the success on the first Survivor, now is doing so many things. He's the James Brown of variety shows. You can see him on CBS Morning after each Survivor episode. He's on Entertainment Tonight Weekly. He's online. He is, in fact, now doing an audition tape for The Weakest Link. He's a host of his own reality-type show. In addition to that, we all know that he runs his own business as a corporate trainer, a consultant. He conducts seminars on topics including conflict management, team building, public speaking. He's also working on his master's program in education at Providence College in Rhode Island. He lives in Newport, Rhode Island with his adopted son, Christopher. There are rats, there are snakes, there are survivors, there are champions. Please welcome Richard Hatch. Now to introduce our program, the mastermind, the executive producer of Survivor, Mark Burnett. Prior to producing Survivor, Mark founded Eco Challenge Lifestyles, Inc., which created new types of outdoor races based on multi-endurance competitions. Since 1972, he's produced 7 Eco Challenge events, earning a Sports Emmy Award and the Banff Rocky Award. In addition to his producing credits, Mark also gives motivational leadership and team-building speeches for corporations nationwide and served on the board of directors of the British Academy of Film and Television Arts in Los Angeles. Please welcome one of the main changers of television in this new century, Mark Burnett.
Well, it's a great honor to be here this evening for a producer. It's a wonderful honor and very appropriate with William S. Paley being the founder of CBS, that we have a CBS show here. Clearly, Survivor has changed television, and I'm very, very proud of that. And we'll have some lovely discussions tonight, and we'll answer all of your questions, hopefully, apart from who won this year, of course. In a moment, we're going to watch, which is a great memory for us, the first ever episode of Survivor, which, when I think back, incredible shoot. It was the first day was 7 hours without stopping action. It was 23 cameras for 7 hours non-stop. And we didn't cut action once. From the minute they left to board the Matahari, that big yellow boat. Remember that, Rich? And right to throwing the rafts in the water, where we had timed exactly the scuba divers to be underwater with enough air at the right moment the boat arrived. So much coordination, the helicopters coming in. Absolutely frightening shoot for my first network show, but it came off well, and now we're going to watch it. So hope you enjoy it, and we look forward to your questions. Thank you.
First episode. Mark, you mentioned William Paley, CBS. Obviously, before CBS was the one network you would not think that would have purchased Survivor. How did you convince them that this is the program they needed?
I'm a great salesman. No, it went around to all the networks, and I actually started at Discovery Channel because I had a show there for a few years, Eco Challenge, which now is at USA. And Mike Quattrone passed. I'm sure he's sorry now. And I've got a list of all the passes. And you know, what really made it work for CBS was Gen Maynard, an executive at CBS. Gen's great. Gen gives good notes. And he told me they were looking to do something different in the summer. They were kind of fed up with doing reruns and allowing the audience to dissipate away to cable each summer. And every September, when the new season came back, less and less viewers were returning to network. And so it was time for them to spend some money and do something unique and different in the summer. And Gen had the courage to go into Leslie Movies, with Survivor. And Leslie agreed, and the rest is history.
And Rich, when did you first learn about Survivor? How did you first learn about it?
My mom called and said CBS was putting together a show just for me. I said, yeah, Mom, okay, in one ear, out the other. She's always got some kind of cockamamie idea for me. But a week later, a friend of mine from Washington had seen the ad as well and emailed me with almost the exact same words. So I looked it up on the internet, filled out the application, sent in a video, and met these guys.
And Jeff, on your resume, you mentioned that it was a piece that you did with Sandra Bullock that helped get you on.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that?
Well, I heard Mark talking on the radio as I was just driving through Los Angeles, and I'd been about almost 2 years without a job, trying to find a job I could really connect with, as goofy as that sounds. And I heard him talking about putting 16 people on the island, and it just, I was in the car, I thought, oh my God, that is the coolest idea I've ever heard. I'm sure they don't need a host, but I'm gonna look into it. And I ended up getting a meeting with Mark and Craig Peligian, and they spent, I was there for like 2 hours, I think, and Burnett spent an hour and 45 minutes telling me why I didn't want the job. You are not gonna be in a hotel, you're gonna have leeches up to your armpits, you're gonna wake up with rats right here. I remember you did this, they'll be right there. And Craig Peligian, you know, and both these guys are Secret Service, some special operations background, and Peligian's like, the rats are this big, Jeff. They're this damn big. And later Mark told me that there was a couple of ingredients that he thought, you know, I had done live TV, a lot of live TV. I'd done a lot of TV that no one had ever seen. And and he said, and I had this interview on my tape with Sandra Bullock where at the end we were sort of flirting and unbuttoning each other's shirts and talking about cleavage. And he said something to the effect of, you know, if you can get that kind of reaction from a celebrity, then, you know, Richard Hatch is, you know, you have a shot at him. That was basically it.
And we learned that the key to the success of a series is casting. Obviously, you know, Big Brother learned that. In your Survivor... In your Survivor 2 book, you list 16 different types that could be composed of the group that you're looking for. Did you have those 16 in mind when you first cast Survivor 1?
Not really. I mean, the number one ingredient for Survivor, unlike a lot of other shows, is that these people have to actually make it, in that case, 39 days, or now 42 days. So they better be adventure seekers. They better be the kind of people who recreate or go on vacations, river rafting, mountaineering, and doing outdoorsy kind of things to actually make it. Beyond that, they better all be A-type, leadership-type people who want to be in charge, because clearly only one can really be in charge eventually, and it creates great drama if everyone wants to be the leader. That was the most important thing. I mean, the book goes into a little psychobabble about different types, but outdoor skills, adventure seekers, and wannabe leaders is what I'm looking for.
Now, Rich, did you think that out before you got on the island, the type of persona that you want to present to the group?
I did a lot of thinking before I landed on the island, but I didn't think out what kind of persona I wanted to necessarily present to the group. I ended up in LA when they'd finally narrowed it down to 48 people in a room with 16 CBS executives saying something to the effect of, look, you know you're going to pick me. What you don't know is I'm going to win. So if we move this process on a little bit, something really ridiculous. And it worked.
He was right.
Now, Jeff, it's mentioned in one of the books that when you go to tribal council, you sort of enter the minds of the people there. Do you look, and how do you sort of get into their minds and get a sense of who they are?
Mark studies black magic, and he, no, actually, tribal council, we just kind of talk about what's been going on and what, this season we really figured out from a storytelling point of view what the purpose of tribal council is, and that is to really to end the story, to fill in the blanks that we have, or to pay off the storylines. And so Mark was very casual this season. He would show up, 15 minutes before tribal council and say, because he's working on the show all day long, and then he'd say, so what do you want to talk about tonight? And we'd say, I don't know, how about this? He said, why don't we talk about the bad things you've learned about human dynamics tonight? Let's talk about that. And then we would just kind of go up there and talk about it. And for me, I've never, ever worked with somebody who gave me the freedom that Mark does. I mean, he totally trusts the people that he hires. And for me, that means at tribal council, here's what I think you should talk about. Go talk about whatever you think's appropriate once you get there. And you can't ask for anything more than that. It is the most liberating and most exciting thing I've ever done.
So are you saying the tribe has spoken was your idea?
No. No. No, but the first Mark, when I first met him, he goes, so, then they all come over and then, you say like, well, obviously, Richard, they just don't like you much no more. So, go. And, they just go. I was like, damn, Mark, I don't know. That's pretty harsh. He said, well, you're going to say the tribe has spoken. I mean, it's not going to be. He had all of this. I mean, he knew, like when I watch Temptation Island, okay? Obviously, a lot of people like the show, and it has certain qualities that appeal to me, even. The one with braids, in particular. But one thing that I didn't really realize how important it was the vernacular that Burnett created. The tribe has spoken, castaways, survivors, it's time for you to go. Fire represents life. All the lines that people dogged me for, in particular, are now the most quoted lines of the show. And you don't see a guy like the host of Temptation Island saying, now I've got this thing, and I'm going to give it to you, and then give it to someone else, and then they won't be, no, this is an immunity idol. Whoever has this cannot be voted out. It's corny, but it's tribal, and it's ritualistic, and it's a brand new vernacular that sticks with you. That's a little tiny thing people I don't think pick up on that Burnett knew from the beginning.
Well, Mark, we have to know, how did you come up with these rituals? I mean, was it how long what did you study, or how did you come up with it?
I've always been interested in messianic kind of things. Going back in history, about how people control other people. Like I know, for example, a very dark part of our history, how Hitler always had rallies at night to weaken people, how the Catholic Church, everything's dim to weaken the flock, to make them think how you want to think. So I've always looked into that kind of psychology of controlling other people. And I thought that to make it, it's true. That's why I have my pitch meetings in the dark. But I felt it was very important to have a structure. It was very, very important that we are in charge. They can never question what we say. I don't care if we tell them to jump off a cliff, they will do it because we tell them to. And they did in Survivor 2. So it was very important that we have a structure and do things in a very overly dramatic way. Now, we're laughing all the time, of course. Jeff and I think it's hilarious. And we just knew how far to take it, I think is the important thing. But I felt that fire was very important, and the snuffing out of the flame meant someone was dying, basically. We were killing someone off in the tribe. And I liked the dramatic element of that. It's a bit hokey, but it worked.
Now, Rich, what was your reaction in the group when you were doing these rituals?
Oh, gosh, when I heard it the first time, I thought I was going to puke. I thought, oh, well, you've got to be kidding me. But, you know, that whole sense in the first tribal council was we had no idea what was going to happen. We didn't know who he was. And here he is with this stuff, and fire represents life. And, you know, I'm thinking, oh, where are we headed with this? But it started to grow on you. You know, tribal council after tribal council, you just started to buy into it somewhat, even as hokey as it sounded, and also get prepared for what it really meant. Okay, somebody's going. So it did even hook us. But boy, when it first started, I had the same reaction everybody else did.
But you know what was great about Richard was that we all knew it was a television show, and we all knew it was a game show, that there's $1 million at stake, and yet it was real in the sense that you're not getting any more rice. But I could always look over at Hatch, and because tribal councils would go on longer than you would see, and sometimes things would get a little testier, especially the first Survivor, because I was trying to stand my own ground, and Richard was really, you know, pressing me. And we could go at it toe to toe, and I could look over at Hatch and just see this tiniest little bit of glint, just a glimmer in his eye, like, it's all good, it's all good. And he'd leave, and I'd think, God, I love this. This is the weirdest thing, but I love it. You were just a great sport about, you know, the back and forth. Yeah.
He really, Jeff really tripped me up a number of times, and so the glint was probably just I was really impressed with his intelligence. I could not believe I really was. I couldn't believe the way he was picking on particular things that were really putting me on the spot, because he would ask questions about things right in front of all the other people that, of course, I didn't want exposed. Right. You know, and I'm thinking of how to answer this, and just learned how to lie brilliantly. And quickly, too.
Besides the rituals, Survivor is also dramatic storytelling. Especially noticeable watching this first episode again is within the first 5 minutes, you're setting up a key relationship, Rich and Sue. And then a little bit later, you have that relationship that will play out through the whole series, Rich and Rudy. Is that something that you really want to look at the show novelistically as well and look at?
Oh, it's critical, you know, that because it is a series and it needs to be like a chapters of a book that unfolds each week. The hardest choice for me in that first episode was whether to include Richard's soundbite about I've already got the $1 million, because we like to have fun in editing, and we were giving away everything at that moment. And it was a real risk. Also, if people really notice and analyze frame by frame the opening sequence, how we play around with having Kelly holding the torch at the end, and then we switched it halfway through to Rich. So we like to play around with the editing on that kind of stuff. But yes, it has to unfold like the chapters of a novel leading forward in very simple storytelling. That was the most important thing that made it work. Don't try to be overcomplicated. Like I thought, even though friends of mine made it, I thought the mole was a little complicated. I was scratching my head, you know, as I was trying to understand it. I think it really needs to be very simple.
Rich, in terms of watching it, obviously it's great as a novel. How does it relate to the actual experience?
I was blown away. This time was interesting emotionally. I reacted more emotionally watching it this time. It's only the second time I've seen it. But the first time I remember being in awe of how they'd captured accurately exactly what took place. I remember looking at my face thinking, they caught just what I was thinking. How the hell did they do that? And I remember knowing what I was thinking, sitting in that stupid tree. You know, I mean, I know what was on my mind, and you could see it in the show. So when I watched it the first time, I was just in awe at how accurately it depicted the experience I knew I had.
You know, at that moment, I remember Richard Dallett, one of our best camera guys, who's brilliant, and I try and hire him all the time, radioed back to headquarters to say, "We have gold dust." That big fat gay guy sitting in a tree.
perfect.
He said, he
didn't know what to do.
He said, if these guys lose immunity, he's the first to go.
They did. They thought that. Actually, didn't you guys choose me because you thought I'd be the first to go or something?
He sat in the tree like a big baby. I mean, everyone...
Well, even when you read the first book, which you guys wrote, you know, Mark is out there writing as it happens, and I think the first sentence is Richard Hatch is going to be the first one gone. That was written on day one. It was so clear.
And not changed.
And not changed.
The first line of my book was never changed, even though, because I really believed it. I was so shocked when he survived. And what makes Richard actually smart is that in life, dumb people walk into the brick wall 50 times, and smart people eventually walk around it. They change strategies of life, of marriage, of jobs. And Richard realized his strategy of playing the corporate trainer, manipulate everybody, was not going to work with these people. And he completely changed his strategy, which was, okay, let's form some alliances and get some people on my side. That's very clever thinking for life, not just Survivor.
You mentioned, you said a producer radioed you back. What is the communication between the island people, yourself, and also between Jeff?
Oh, we're in touch all the time. I mean, from when you saw, for example, in Survivor 2, Michael Scooping get burned, how we knew to get the medics there so quickly was the radio communications. There's producers and camera guys. Everyone's got radios all the time. A camera team with a cameraman, a assistant, and a sound person have 3 radios right there. The producer and the assistant producer have 2 radios, 5 radios per team. And so we have a very, very well set up communications network with microwaves. So we have data, voice, and images. And it's set up on every location we go to. Communications are everything because we have to react immediately. And the radio message back wasn't a creative, let's get ready for something. It was just more fun. Oh my God, I have gold dust with this guy in the tree.
Let me just add to that. They had communications everywhere, but from our perspective, the biggest question I get asked by everybody is, what was it like with camera crew? Did that take away from your experience? And they were no more than trees to us. We didn't talk to them for the longest time, and they didn't talk to us. They were literally, you'd hit them or kick them or walk over them, and you just, move out of the way. So although they had this all going on, we didn't experience any of it. We had no idea that they were in or were as aware as they were. We would leave camp, and we learned afterwards, later in the show, as we're tearing apart the shelter, there were camera wires in it and sound bugged. They had us wired everywhere, and we didn't really know it. That was fun.
And Jeff, where are you getting your information? How are you learning about what's going on?
Through those cameras.
That's right.
Pretty much. I mean, I'm out there the whole time with everybody else, so we're constantly, that's all we, one of the things about not having a cell phone and a pager and all that is you have nothing to do but focus on the job at hand, and that is Survivor. So every single moment is, I remember where I was sitting when I heard on the walkie-talkie that Scoopin' went down in the fire. I mean, that, like Mark says, gold dust, you can't deny. You hear that and you go, oh, holy shit, that's going to be good. I hope he's okay, but that is definitely good. I mean, you can't help it. You'd be lying if you said anything else. Obviously, we could tell from the radio report he wasn't going to die, but you're thinking, that's what Survivor needs right now. It's day whatever. Right? Burnett, back me up here. Well, I speak from my own truth.
I was extremely concerned, and I wish it never happened.
Yeah.
Part of the success of Survivor, obviously, is the interaction with the fans, and I know there are a lot of questions out here. So what we're going to do, we have 4 microphones, and please raise your hand, wait for the microphone, and then ask your question. I'll point out 2 people so we can get the microphone to you. You have a question right here, and a question over there.
As soon as someone is voted off, where do they go directly? And do they ultimately leave the island within the 39 days?
I wouldn't know.
I wasn't asking Richard.
Nice.
It's a great answer. I guess I should take this one. The first thing that happens when someone is voted off, they walk down that long walk and they go into a confessional area and say those words which you hear over the credits. We let them have the last say. We thought from a moral responsibility point of view, everyone likes to have the last word, and that's their cathartic last word. But after that, the first person they see is a psychologist. The same psychologist who was involved in casting and gave them their 7 hours of written psychological examinations to make sure they weren't crazy. And that person then spends 24 hours with them in a debrief. And the most important thing, of course, is to make them not feel like the worst thing would be someone was so distraught they want to kill themselves out of the embarrassment of the whole thing, and to talk them down if they needed it. Of course, if the psychologist has done a good enough job in casting, everyone will be emotionally strong enough and not be the kind of person who would need to feel like doing something terrible to themselves. But then we can't stop people going home once they're voted off. I mean, they're American citizens. You can't imprison people. We really don't want them going home, and we'll do whatever we can to let them take trips or keep them as busy as we can. In the first Survivor, 4 people actually did go home, and they were Bibi went home, Sonia went home, Gretchen went home, see her children, and Dirk went home. Those were the 4 people. All the other ones stayed till the end. Survivor 2, everybody stayed. And, I think because they realized, people who commit to this kind of thing are giving up 2 months or more of their lives for an adventure experience. And it's better for the show if no one returns to America, because then the reports come out. I remember in the Kansas City newspapers, Bibi was cited at home, and it was clear he hadn't won. It just makes my job much more difficult.
Just speaking about that 7 hours of testing, Rich, could you just talk about that and what it was? Yeah.
They had a psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever they were, a bunch of them, and they did 48 of us. 40 out of the 6,000 applicants in the first show, 48 of us were brought to LA, and they spent days evaluating. There were written tests for hours on end, and they had one-on-one interviews with the psychiatrist. I remember they turned on a camera and put us alone in a room, turned it on, and said, "See you in 15 minutes." All kinds of psychological investigation into what they thought we would do or how we would react. And then after all of those, they talked with us about who they thought we were, which was interesting.
Which was correct.
But I'm not saying what they thought.
We have a question right here.
Mark, I understand you're getting geared up for Survivor 3. And I'm wondering, do you intend to keep it fresh, especially with contestants that have seen the first season already knowing that alliances are what it takes to win?
Well, I think we can see already that, people know that alliances work, but Survivor 2 is working really, really well. It's been critically well received, and the ratings are far above what Survivor 1 was, of course. I think last week we even beat ER handily. It's an evolution. It's like having your first job in an office and not understanding how to play the games, because clearly office politics are much more related to your promotion than your capability. And Survivor's the same way. It's a natural evolution. It would be completely dumb, actually, had these new people, say I'd found 16 people who had never seen Survivor, and they came and played Survivor 2, without any alliances or anything, you'd think they were morons, So the audience have seen Survivor 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 probably, and therefore and they know, we're all on the inside track here. The question is, or the fact is, not everybody can be in an alliance. It doesn't work. It only really worked because Richard was really clever, and there was an unsuspecting prey for him to prey upon. And that's what really worked. They even, if you remember it, I think in week 9 or 10, they were still debating, there's no alliance. They're unbelievable, And he's picking them off one by one. That wouldn't exist now. But in order to keep it fresh, we've got a few new things. I think, the success of Survivor, a lot of it is relatability. You can relate to the people. We all know people like this or have met people like who they are, can relate to some of them. And the freshness is important. The new location each year provides a fresh element. And I think we've got a few good tricks up our sleeves with new contests and some new rules for Survivor 3.
Have a question over here, and then a question right over here on that side.
I'd like to know what Jeff's and Mark's accommodations were like.
They were the same, and they were like in Australia, we just had tents. So there were about 200 and something tents. Tent City was base camp.
Identical.
Yeah. That's as goofy as this sounds too, that there's no hierarchy. There just isn't. Mark's tent is right next to mine. It's the same size, and I can hear him, and sometimes he can hear me, unfortunately. And so there's, no real privacy out there, and there's, Mark doesn't have a big office. Craig Pelagian, he doesn't have a big office. You're just walking around, shaving sometimes, not showering other days, and doing your job. So I don't know why people think that. People never believe me when I say that we stay out there. They're like, yeah. So what do? You copter in, and then you copter back out?
Yeah, every tent, all 230 tents are identical. And I have worked with a lot of these crews since the early days of Eco Challenge. I mean, like 8 years now. And, we're all outdoor adventurers. We all climb mountains and go to jungles and deserts. My camera crews would want to kill me if I suddenly got Hollywood on them and wanted to have a different size tent or a Winnebago. We have no respect from anybody, have absolutely no respect. That's not the way survival works, right? I mean, it just doesn't work. You have to be one of the guys and be willing to get soaked and be up all night as well. Otherwise, I kind of would feel so weird they wouldn't want to work the same way and bust their asses the way they have to if they felt that we were getting very Hollywood.
Well, in fact, on the first Survivor, the family, we had a family that was cooking the food. And this is Malaysian family, and very sweet family, loved to cook fish heads every night. And, Australia was easier logistically. Malaysia, everything was a boat ride, and it was an hour and a half, and it was storming every night, and it was quite dangerous a lot of nights. There were some,
I feel so sorry for them.
mishaps. Yeah. All right. We weren't playing for $1 million, but the point I was just trying to make was that we would come back maybe 10 o'clock at night and be ready for dinner, and the family would say, oh, yeah, dinner's finished, And nobody had been there to eat it. They had cooked it and waited, and at 8:30, like we originally said, they'd clean it up and put it away, and you'd come back, and these guys are working their ass off, and there's no food. And, Burnett and Pelagian are like, hey, go to bed. That's the way it goes. So it was definitely a real experience, not like theirs, but, in a different way.
Rich, did you guys have any idea how the production teams were living, or?
None. In fact, we didn't even know that where they were or what they had going on there. We occasionally saw a boat come in with people on it, and it would take the crew that was there or the producer that was there with the camera crew or sound person and switch shifts. So we'd see a boat come down the beach, and people get off and people get on it, and that was it. We had no idea where they were or what it was like where they were.
I have a question right here.
Yes, a question for Rich.
Yeah.
Clearly you were strategizing to win from the get-go. So one question, what was the thinking behind the whole naked thing?
There wasn't a lot of thinking behind that. It was 110 in the middle of the South China Sea on a deserted island.
Bullshit. That was strategy.
It might have been. But I don't remember. I mean, I never thought to myself, oh, okay, let's get naked so I can win. When I look back, I think to myself, I'm happy that I looked like that and I just didn't care what people thought. Because I care more now than I did then. It just really didn't bother me then. And it didn't bother the people around me until we merged. And then Colleen was pretty off-put. But then when she was, I put on pants.
I remember one day, one thing that my rule is that we're making TV, but it has to be a real contest. In other words, we can't allow the TV show to affect them, otherwise they won't react in a real way and it won't come across real because they're not actors, so you can't make them act. And one day, CBS was that day, and Rich's birthday, and we had a contest, and the rumor comes, hey Mark, Rich is coming naked to the contest, and it's a game show type of thing. It was the one where the Rudy won, we'd turn over the squares, and they're saying, we better tell him to put his clothes on. That's what CBS says. I said, I'm not saying put his clothes on, absolutely not. If he comes naked, we shoot it and we pixelate it. If we tell him to put his clothes on, we just totally affected their reality, and then they'll never trust us again. You cannot tell them to do anything. If they want, like Greg Buis screwed with us all the time, all the time. especially with Jeff. But one thing we whispered in his ear one day, or John Feist, the producer, whispered in Greg, he said, "It's very funny, Greg, but there's one thing you're forgetting. Burnett has the edit bays. You're going to look like an asshole by the time he's finished with you if you're not careful. And so don't play with us too much because we have the edit bay." And that was, and he's a very clever guy, Greg. And Greg looked at us and sort of, it dawned on him to start toning down his antics a little bit too, because he would be too much at sometimes, with the crazy pirate laughs in the middle of tribal council.
Love that. Yeah.
You mentioned, Mark, CBS. Is standards and practices there with you, or do they only enter in
There's
after?
no standards practices on this show. They don't deal with this show. CBS are there all the time, and they're welcome to be there. To be honest with you, Survivor is such a hard adventure experience. We've become best friends with a lot of the CBS people. I mean, literally best friends at our houses and parties all the time and stuff. It's not like a network producer relationship anymore. And in fact, every rough cut, we welcome their notes. I mean, many producers don't want the network to be involved. Actually, we're the opposite. We want all those notes because we sometimes miss things. And so it's a very collaborative, we edit, we give to them, their notes come back, and rarely are there bad notes. I mean, Gen Maynard, who's the executive on the show, gives excellent notes. He's a Harvard grad, extremely smart, and catches things that we miss. But they're there all the time. But in terms of the standards and practices, that's not part of this show for whatever reason. But you know what? We're sensible. We know this show, the studies have shown there's children, parents, and grandparents watching, and we've tried to be as careful as we can and tone down as best we can with the editing on certain issues, even by pixelating Richard's penis.
I knew that was coming.
Next question, we have one way back there, and we have a person right over here.
I was wondering about the episode in which Sean won the challenge, and if I remember correctly, the next day he spent the night on a boat and his father was waiting. I was wondering if you could explain the logistics, if I remember correctly, of getting his father across the planet in what I guess was 36 hours. Did I not say that correctly?
No, it's true.
And what if
takes
somebody
work.
else would have won that challenge? How would you set up for that?
Let me think of it. The only thing I want to discuss this. Actually, everyone's ripping us off anyway, so I might as well explain it. Okay, we did the math on exactly how long the plane takes, what time the plane took off, and we knew that we had to have that challenge at 7:30 a.m. on our day, and we knew that we had to have 7 or 8 family members at LAX with a ticket in every one of their names, with coordinators standing by LAX. And the problem that day, if you remember, it was raining like crazy, and we knew we had to have that, still have the contest no matter rain or shine. So we had the contest. Sean won. Satellite phone call immediately to LAX to the coordinator, Lynn Spillman. Lynn then announced to Mr. Kenneth that he was getting on the plane, announced to the other 7 family members, unfortunately, you are not getting on the plane, but to soften the blow, they were allowed to give him a care package for each of the people. I only did that, not because I really wanted them to have a care package, but I wanted the parents to not feel bad that they've flown from New York and from Oregon or wherever for no reason. So they gave care packages to him. He got on the plane. We then told Sean, Sean, we've blown it. The owner of the boat can't provide the boat tonight. There's a problem, but you'll get the reward tomorrow night. So he pushed it off one night. Sean didn't question that. No one questioned it. Did you question it?
No.
No one questioned it. They'd seen the boat on the horizon. The weather was bad or whatever. Next day, Sean goes out. Sean was on that boat in the shower and got a massage from Junko, one of our coordinators.
Complete with a spank on the ass.
Spank on the ass, which we told her to do. She's now one of the challenges coordinators on Survivor. She got promoted. And what... because she was good at spanking his ass. And while Sean was in the shower, his dad's plane had landed. We had a person at the airport with a radio across to a satellite phone onto a fast boat, a really, really fast 200 horsepower speedboat, which took the 50-minute journey, which had to coordinate in the dark, in the middle of South China Sea with that boat, to come up the ladder onto the boat and be staying there at the wheel. And we kept Sean massage going longer and longer and longer to allow the dad to get on. So it was all just producing.
Rich, any recollections of that boat?
Who cares about any of that? All I know is I got breakfast. Sean pulled me out the next day, and I got to eat breakfast. I just remember not even talking, just saying, you guys talk. More eggs.
There was another good story that was sort of talked about in the book, but you didn't talk about it. About you talked about it, about the Kelly in the bar.
Oh.
You can tell it. Yeah, it just great. This personifies Survivor for me. It's like 5 people down to 5 people, I think. The one day the sponsors are coming, the one damn day. And they trek all the way, and they take the boats, and they're trekking through the mud, and they're out there, and they're all pale skin, and they have white shorts on and little Survivor T-shirts, and they're going to come watch, the monkeys in the zoo. That's kind of what it felt like. And we get word over the radio that these guys led by Hatch, I think, they've heard that they're playing for 1 Bud Light. And this is after Rich has been on the boat and the yacht and all this stuff. And they're grumbling, you know what? We're not playing for a Bud Light. And this is baloney. We've already had a luxury cruise. They better have something better. So the producers call and they tell Burnett, we got possible mutiny here. They are really tired. This is day 33 or 4 or whatever. Starving. And we know enough about Richard and Sue and these guys. It wouldn't have surprised us if they showed up and said, not doing it, not doing it. So Burnett he goes into Burnett mode, and he says, well, first of all, I just want to say that if our sponsors weren't here, I'd just say, screw them. You want to go home? Go home. I'll keep the money. I still got a show. But I can't do that. So I got to think of something. And he just sort of invited people. There was a couple of people there, and he just said, what can we do? And people started throwing out ideas, and somehow he just took a piece here and piece there, and he goes, all right, I got it. And that means shut up. And he says, here it is. The winner is playing for Bud Light, because we got to get the sponsor in. And then they're playing for dinner with you, Jeff, at a Malaysian bar, which Kelly, the production designer, is going to build right now. And they're gonna watch the first 10 minutes of Survivor. And literally 3 hours, he gets on the walkie-talkie, or somebody did, and said, Kelly, base camp, which is huge with things, tents everywhere and all this stuff, you got to make a tiny little Malaysian bar out of this. And you have about 3 hours. So we did the challenge. Kelly wins. They go pick her up, take her on a boat, blindfold her, drive her around for an hour and a half in the water in circles. She gets off the deck at the dock, and she's still blindfolded, and I start spinning some yarn about, now, you're at another island, this is where the crew comes, and sure enough, we get her in this little place, 35 Malaysian guys walking around smoking and drinking and talking loud, and Kelly ends up telling Richard what a great experience she had. And it wasn't until the wrap party afterwards that we brought her up and said, do you recognize this place? And she just goes, oh my God. And Rich goes, you told me you went to another island. It was like the Sting. It was the greatest con.
I remember that.
Actually, Jeff, you just mentioned the word mutiny, and that almost happened on the other show. How do you deal with that, the possibility that some of the contestants will band together?
Our word is law, and we are pretty tough about how we do things. It has to be. We have to be in command. Otherwise, we'd have the lunatics running the asylum, And I
thought you said we had psych exams, and
we have to, and it's all about keeping them off balance all the time. And, it hasn't happened. I don't think it will happen. It's because it's like the question people ask me all the time. How come they don't mug for the cameras? The reason is very simple. They are so focused on dominating the peer group, each other. They're so worried about looking good in front of each other and being dominant. The camera crews just become like an annoyance, right? Like Rich said, they're like the trees. We are just an annoyance. Get out of our way. They want to dominate each other, and everyone wants to be the leader because we've cast 16 leaders. And they're so dominant in that. This was the closest time it would happen, but we know everything that's going on all the time, and that's why we get heads up when there's an issue. And we stand that day, and the crew come in. They don't want to play for a Bud Light. They want a car. Because the mistake is, which I learned, you can't have rewards which go like this and then drop off to nothing. As they're getting hungrier and hungrier and more pissed off, it has to keep it motivated.
I think you had food coming, then you had family members and everything, and a Bud Light.
Yeah, but the only reason it happened, which turned out to be a great moment, was because the sponsors were there. Because I think Burnett thought, you know what, I'm not gonna. Because normally, what Mark said initially is exactly what he would have done. He would have said, fine, go back.
I took bets that it was going to be the Aztec, because we knew Aztec was a sponsor, and we thought, oh, that's the next prize.
It's really important, and we had times, Richard, which they all cave in on. You can't blink. If you're producing this kind of thing, it's a game of chicken. You cannot blink if you're a producer in this situation. The minute that you start to back down, it's over, right?
Yeah, we would have pushed for more. Just a little.
Can't back down.
Have a question over here.
It seems to be the theme to starve the tribe members. And I was just wondering, what was your thinking behind that? Because you could see that they're all losing weight and being hungry and killing animals.
Well, it's surviving. I mean, the fact of the matter is there's plenty of food. I mean, Richard caught plenty of fish. He just chose when he would catch fish to manipulate the other tribe members. Very clever. He knew he was the provider. He was the only person who was actually willing to go out there. I mean, what you didn't see on the show, I think it was 5 or 6 hours a day he was swimming, catching fish. So it was really, really hard work. And you got, on the Pogong side, pretty much a little bit of laziness going on there. They didn't really want to work that hard to catch the fish. And so the food is there, but you have to actually go out and do the work. And this year you've got, that's the merge, but before the merge, clearly Kucha were much more industrious, and we're catching 16, 18 fish. And Ogakor, we'd go over there and they'd be laying around sunbathing, wondering why they're hungry. It's a classic. I bet you'll be on Survivor 6 and we'll have one tribe laying around and complaining, and one tribe. And the great thing was when there was the final challenge on the blind one of Kucha versus Ogakor, and you cut to Kucha, they're training for 4 hours, and he cuts Ogakor, and they're like picking their nose. What should we do, And it is all about how motivated the tribe is.
And remember, we knew ahead of time in the rules, kind of going in, that this was going to be survival. We knew we were going to have to find our own food somehow. So for us, I expected that. I didn't know what we'd be eating, but I knew we'd be eating very little if we didn't get it.
Okay, question. We have a question right in the middle there, and a question right over here.
My question would be, first I want to give you credit for the design.
Okay, wait for the microphone.
Sorry. First I wanted to give you credit for the design of the show. There was such a playful sophistication to it that every week I would tape it and I would watch freeze frame and how it was edited. So I want to give you credit for that, particularly with the maps and all the little details you put into it. It did not escape your audience. Then I have a question. At any time, did anybody ever consider, I've had enough rats, I'm going to vote myself off the island?
I never had a rat. Never, not once, did I ever think about leaving.
Yeah, you can't vote for yourself.
In tribal council, you couldn't write your own name down.
The closest that came to happening, the only time really, was BB deciding that he had had enough on day 3 or something. and what was interesting was he tried to engineer. Mark phrased it. He tried to engineer his own quit, get people to vote for him. And then at the 11th hour, I think maybe once he felt the relief that he knew he could go home if he wanted to, he didn't want to go home. And then he started backtracking and he tried to rework people thinking, I'm a good builder. And by that time, it was like, what? You just spent 2 days pissing us all off. So.
And he really, really regrets it psychologically. I've become a good friend of BB's. And I really like him a lot. And he regrets that greatly. He's a wealthy guy. He's had a very successful life and wants to come and volunteer now on Eco Challenge. And that affected BB because he realizes it was the wrong thing to do. I mean, all of us at some time have quit something. I know I have. And you don't forget those things. Especially as an American citizen, it's a thing. So Americans don't like quitters. And BB hasn't forgotten that.
Mark, do you want to talk about the look and the design? How did you come up with...
I've got my shooting style from Eco Challenge. I don't know if anyone's seen that show. Thank you. And I love that show. It's in my blood. And it's going to be on April 1st on USA, by the way. And I think it's going to be the best Eco Challenge you'll have ever seen this year. And both shows have complemented each other. My shooting style has absolutely grown out of my love for the outdoors and Eco Challenge. And when I pitched it, I remember even saying to you, Jeff, this is going to be different. We're going to shoot this in a way that we're going to take breaths for birds to fly by or the ants to crawl. It's okay to take a breath in a documentary kind of way that won't hurt the storytelling. In fact, you can't be going too crazy and the audience will get a headache. You need to slow down every now and then we need to use liberally Westcam technology, from our great aerials that we shoot. And everyone's always asking, how come we never see a camera in a shot? It just takes a lot of work. And I've had the same shooting, editing and producing team. A lot of them have come from Eco Challenge in '95. So we've been together a long time. It's people who are dedicated to the craft and people who are shooters who are willing to be out there 14 hours. And when their shift's up and you can't pick them up, they're like, no, get away. I've got a moment, get away. That takes real guts and real caring about framing the shot, and how we do things. And so, I get the credit, but it's an enormously large and talented team.
A lot of these guys, the artistry of one camera person, shooting a sequence that's happening live that you can't ask for another take on, and yet they manage to anticipate well enough to know when this moment's about to end and this moment over here is starting. And then they can sense, I gotta go back down to his hands because he's doing something, but she's gonna come back. And then you give it to the editors and these guys take all these pieces and create this unbelievable story. It looks like you have 7 camera people. Oftentimes it's one who's in a corner and can't do anything other than cover this so that you can cut it and tell it dramatically. And you never notice that unless it's your business, but they're amazing.
Got a question down here. Right there, yes.
Hi, why did you edit out all of the Survivor 2 people talking about Survivor 1? I read somewhere that you did that. I didn't know why, and if it was your choice or a legal issue or what.
It wasn't legal. Just think it was done. It was over, and it didn't really interest me. They'd be talking about what Rich's strategy was and that kind of stuff. I mean, I think it had any place in the Outback, and didn't necessarily edit it out. We just didn't even bother digitizing the footage. It would have been a waste of time. You should know that we shot, I don't know what it is now, I lose track, like 3,000 hours or something of footage on Survivor 2. And on the edit question, I mean, we just did, I think we have an average 2,750 edits per 44 minutes of a show, which is enormous. A lot of work goes into it and the editing. But I just didn't feel like it had any place. And it would have taken you away from the Outback and been referring to ourselves in a previous place. And maybe I was wrong. I mean, I make tons of wrong decisions, but someone's got to decide something. And so I basically sent a message to Kucha and Oka and told them, talk, and it's just my way. I said, talk as much as you want about Richard and Sue, and the more you talk about them, the less time you'll be on TV. and the next day, no one mentioned it again.
Have a question down front right here, and a person right on the aisle over here.
One of the things about seeing it on the big screen is you can read the credits, and there was a created by credit. Yeah. Could you talk about the original pitch? Who is this guy, and did the writer get to go to the set?
First of all, there's no writer. Really good friend of mine, Charlie Parsons, very, very creative British producer, who now hates television, by the way. He doesn't want to work in TV anymore. But Charlie, 10 years ago, had an idea in England to put 4 people on a small British island. It was a convict, a stockbroker, a housewife, and a construction worker. And just see what would happen. Just see what would happen. And then Charlie's original idea for it was like a game show. Survivor would be like a game show. And we got involved, because the thing, Charlie had never done anything outdoors before. He's a studio producer. And, I convinced him I thought it should be a drama. I thought this could be told dramatically. And my take on it was, you need the contests, the games, if you like, but they should only be there to create the drama. And the most important part of the show was the before and after. and Charlie did get to come to the set. He lasted about 24 hours on the set. But he's a really, really good friend of mine, very, very creative. He created a show in England called Big Breakfast, which is probably the longest running morning show over there. It's a great show. Also had the guts to put on the first ever gay variety show on network television, which I thought had a lot of courage as well. Extremely creative guy who now just so much money, sits in his castle and counts his money all day long.
Had a question right here.
Hi. We all know what Richard got. Congratulations. But what do the other people get? Does it increase on a weekly basis, their compensation? Are you able to talk about that? It's just never really been clear to me. Thanks.
Where's Colleen? Do I talk about that? Yes, I had to check with my CBS person. Yes, everybody wins something. I think I've said in the press before, the first person voted off gets $2,500. The second place person gets $100,000, and it ramps up all the way along. So the longer you survive, the more money you get, and which is appropriate because you're spending more time in the game. And so, just to come second or third or fourth, you're earning good money. But the one thing to remember on the money is, it's great to win $1 million, but the truth of the matter is that after tax, less than that, right? But
True.
But all of them came for the adventure experience. That's the big thing. And you talk to almost everybody, maybe not Stacey, but if you talk to everybody, they all want to do it again. All of them would do it again in a minute, just for the adventure experience. Because you know what? How many times in all of our lives, like Jeff said, do you get away from the cell phone, the pager, the glass, the steel, the electricity, and have time to actually think a little bit? Even the crew, even we get time to actually think. And it's actually great to get away from these crazy cities and stuff.
I have a question right up there, right over there, and one right here.
On the DVD, there's the eliminated or the edited out challenge of guessing how much weight everyone had lost. At what point did you decide to take that out? What did you replace it with? And are there any other challenges that got cut out?
Yeah, every year we cut some challenges out. We obviously can't cut out any challenge, like an immunity challenge, because it's got an integral, relates to who's in tribal council. And we can't cut out a reward challenge that provides something which can appear later because there's no continuity. But the issue really, anytime we cut a challenge out, it's because the reality is so good and the dramatic storytelling is so good, we just can't fit it in. We only have 44 minutes. And it's really hard because so much happens. And so the only time we cut things out is purely, we have to look at it that we have 3 knowns, 2 challenges and a tribal council. We must have tribal council. We must have the immunity challenge. And the reward challenge, can stay or go depending on what it is. And all of them, by the way, in their lengths can concertina. And we always thought that if we weren't that good at the reality storytelling, we could always expand these 3 things and have to fill in between to make the show work. Fortunately, we've become quite good at our job, and we're continually contracting these games and challenges down, and tribal council down this year, because the reality is so good. And so that's why sometimes it's left out, and that's how we decide how long these things should be. It's all about, clearly, if the reality was that brilliant, you'd get rid of the reward challenge every time. The reward challenge is just there to create dramatic incident. And it's a contrivance, like the whole thing is a contrived situation. No one landed on Palutiga on their own reconnaissance. And we put them there. We contrived the whole situation. What's real about Survivor is the reactions to the contrivances. So I've never said, it's reality. I don't even know if it is a reality show. I guess I should keep my mouth shut, at least for the Emmys.
Had a question right down here.
Yeah, you just said that you must have an immunity challenge. You must have tribal council. Why did you opt not to have either of those when Michael was burned, and resulting in merging your 2 sides together with equal members?
It's a good question. The reason we did have a tribal council, by the way. There was a tribal council. We just didn't see it on TV. And the reason was we had a ceremonial tribal council. There was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of tears. that came about. But, you know, the way I think that show was edited, and by the time we'd got done with Roger leading a prayer, because it was a really serious time. There was no laughing, no joking on the crew or the contestants when that happened. It was a real serious time. And they were praying, and we came to the time, and we realized, you know, it kind of is almost more insulting to Michael to now have a fake tribal council, which we shot, and I thought at the time was really dramatic, but once we cut it into the show, it just took away from the drama. And after all, our job is to entertain the viewers with the right drama. And the reason that we didn't have an immunity challenge, it didn't make any sense. I mean, I guess the Survivor, you can either get voted out or nature can take you out. And we ran it by all the contestants. Everyone was really fine with it. It was the right way to go. Because the risk would have went in with 9, and either of them could have went in disadvantaged versus going at 5 and 5.
I have a question down front right here, and then a question right here.
Yeah, Richard, now that Jeff is gone, who's your new pick and why?
Who's my new pick? Well, I think Jeff is gone because he very clearly could have been a winner. And there's another one right there with him. The two of them, I think, were playing the game or are playing the game best. So my money's on Colby right now. Yeah, no, because I really think he's going to win, not because of that. Although, damn.
Yes, right here.
Before I get to my question, first I want to say to Jeff, you are the Vince Scully of reality talk show hosts.
Thanks.
Okay. I noticed that there appears to be all regular people in both the first 16 and in the second 16. It appears like the first show that Kelly and Greg and maybe Joel and Jervis were the best athletes. But in your opinion, Mark and Jeff, who were the most best competitors? And I got a second question after that. Who are the best competitors of both Survivor shows?
Athletically, you mean, or gamesmen just playing the game?
Well, athletically, just the total out like the Michael Jordan of total competitiveness. It appeared Kelly had a great competitiveness. Who do you, in your opinion, both of you, had the most competitive drive?
Well, it's too early in Survivor 2 to really, tell. You're just now getting to the merge where immunity challenges now become worth exerting yourself. I mean, up until now, you can't be too dominant. You have to help your team, but not look like a threat. So now you're going to start to see it, come out.
Also, one more. What would you do, Mark, if you had somebody like Scott Tinley or Dan O'Brien send a video to you? They would have a definite advantage. Dan O'Brien is the great decathlete, and Scott Tinley, a triathlete.
Just like, those people, I always say, first of all, I always wish they'd apply for Eco Challenge and get their asses kicked in Eco Challenge, which they would in about 2 days. And similarly on Survivor, people like that who are high-strung athletes who are measuring out their carbo loading and their protein, I don't think do very well in the outdoors. And Richard would eat them for breakfast.
Speaking of that, maybe CBS will sponsor a Survivor Eco Challenge team. I'll go on it.
Okay, have a question back there, over in the corner, and one way back there on the aisle.
What was your disaster scenario for a natural, medical, or accidental calamity?
Again, I've had the same team in place for a long time with Eco Challenge, which has many more disasters. We bring our own helicopter pilots in that we use. We're very particular about the machines that we use because we know what machines can fly in which kind of wind, which kind of terrain. Same medical crew for many, many years. It's a very tight-knit group of people that have been in very bad, some of the worst storms in the Andes Mountains in Patagonia. Worst storm in 10 years, getting people off of a 14,000-foot cliff face. This year in Borneo, someone dying in front of my very eyes at Eco Challenge, a guy actually dying as his lung collapsed, and we had to reinflate his lung because he had an open chest wound from going into a branch. And Dr. Adrian Cohen, 2 feet away from me, looked at me and said, "Mark, this is the worst one ever. Let's just do this," and stuck a needle right into the guy's lung and reinflated the guy's lung right in the mud. These are some of the best EMTs and adventure medics you could ever find. What we do is we spend no expense on the right helicopters, the best pilots, the best doctors and medics, and we bring in a company each year called Lateral Linking to put in our microwave communications so that we're never going to be without radio coverage any time, no matter how far spread apart we are. And so that's the first thing we do. We try and mitigate by having a great response. We also do research to find out what are the expected dangers. We knew the expected dangers in Australia, for example, from the land would be forest fires, which happened. We were ready for it and understood it. So we had a helicopter flying every morning, spotting forest fires, doing wind speed, wind direction, landing, seeing how dangerous this was getting. Additionally, we knew floods, which we haven't got to that part yet. There's floods which are a danger all the time. As the dry season becomes the wet season, it becomes an enormous amount of rain which will come down. The other thing, of course, is the snake situation. The nearest danger of a death in Survivor was Richard, which he picked up that snake by the tail that day, like he was playing around. Actually, had that snake bitten, he wouldn't be sitting here right now. Luckily, being a large man, he would have lasted longer. And our plan was everybody's blood groups and medical details are lodged with the private hospital, in that case in Kota Kinabalu, or in Australia case in Cairns. So there are doctors that have everyone's files and are ready. Our doctor is on the satellite phone with them. And for example, when Michael got burned, he was in that hospital in Cairns within an hour and a half of the accident, which is very, very fast. And then we found out that they couldn't really deal with a burn properly in Cairns. So immediately we chartered a private jet, had him on that jet 45 minutes later, and flew him to another city where the best burns unit in that part of Australia was. So it's a matter of having the budget, having the plans in place, and of course, had the forest fire been completely out of control, we obviously would have to put lives first. We'd move everyone back, separate them, feed them a little bit, keep them until the forest fire was controlled, then put them back and play the game. The game has to go on. There's no question about that. And so that's what we would do.
Had a question over here.
Yeah. Okay. My question is, I want to know who invented the games, and more importantly, who thought of the standing around and doing nothing for a really long time game?
Jeff thought of the standing around doing nothing. That's why he's a host. And we have an incredible challenges team, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of fun with it. I mean, Jeff's obviously... One thing about Jeff, by the way, when we had that first meeting at CBS, I made it clear that I was looking for someone who could be a host, but was actually a producer in their brain, and which Jeff is. And that's why Jeff doesn't show up do his lines. Jeff's in the edit bay all day, every day. Jeff's part of the creative team. Jeff's in the challenges meeting, discussing how to make a challenge better. We're a very collaborative team, very collaborative. And we have an incredible challenge production team who present to us each season 100 new challenges, which is a really, really hard job, of which we choose 50. And we go on location with 50 in our back pocket and try and work out each show how the grid should lay out and how it should happen. And John Kierhofer is the guy who's in charge of that team. And actually, Junko Tanaka, a Japanese woman who gave the spank to Sean, is now number 2 in the challenges team. She's very smart.
And one thing about, probably the most profound thing I learned from Mark is he has limitless thinking. And when you see that play out in the middle of a jungle, it's amazing. He doesn't ever think, if he decides he wants the camera to come down from here and get a shot. It doesn't enter his mind that there's a roof up here. He just doesn't think that way. He knows that there's some way to do it, and you figure it out. And we had these instances come up, and this time in Australia, there was just a moment that happened where I was with one of the producers, and Mark wasn't out there yet, and we made the comment, wouldn't it be great if this could happen? But it was impossible for it to happen. And we said, so we came up with some other idea. And Mark comes out there, and the first thing he says is, why hasn't this thing happened? And instantly, and it did end up happening. I'm being vague because it hasn't happened yet. But the point is that right there in my brain, I thought, if I ever say the phrase, wouldn't it be great, when I'm around Mark Burnett, that's what has to happen. And you don't think, it'll be really difficult. You just think, now we got to do it. And that's a long way of saying that gives the challenge department this incredible freedom to say, Mark, what about a ropes course 20 feet in the air through trees? When you think about that, it's illogical. That doesn't make any sense. How can you possibly pull that off? And there's Richard Jenna stepping over Richard, doing it 3 weeks later. Hey, I'm not sure that story was worth telling.
I have a question right down front here, and a question down front over here.
Yeah, 2 questions. One, if someone's on medication, do the contestants, are they allowed to have the medicine, or?
Yeah, there's a pelican case at each tribe that you never see on TV, because if someone's on prescription medication and we can't deprive them of that, it doesn't add anything to the show and just puts us at risk. Similarly, things like contact lens solution, tampons.
Do you still bother with condoms?
Condoms, yeah, absolutely, because you know what? Last thing we need is some sexually transmitted disease, and we were irresponsible by not providing the means to prevent that. I mean, we just can't have that. Similarly, the women brought up a really great thing on Survivor 1, which we added in, which was antibacterial hand washing stuff, because when the women are menstruating, and if they can't take care of the cleanliness, they're at a disadvantage with the guys.
Yeah.
And so that's what the women came to us and said, you know what, we have a request. You need to provide this. And we're like, you know what, you're right. And so we did. So there is a pelican case with that kind of stuff in that's never on camera.
And one more thing. I don't know if you saw David Letterman did a sketch recently where he was on Survivor and he had a luxury item of having like a Lamborghini or something pulls out. What are the limits on the luxury items that they're allowed to have?
Yeah, he loves our show, right? He's getting old. Move over. Okay. It has to be transportable. Can't be survival related. So it can't be a knife or anything like that. Has to be a luxury thing to remind you of home and transportable. So, and they give us 1 or 2 items they'd like to bring. Invariably, we'll let them bring their first choice. Colby was very clever this year with the flag, obviously. Didn't think about that. Also, so he caught us off guard with that. It's too late, by the way. Once they bring that stuff and they're there, and it turns out the flag is 900 feet long and it's a roof, it's too late. Similarly, BB, you don't think for a minute those glasses were real glasses. BB went and had his friend, an optician, make a look-alike pair of eyeglasses, but really magnifying glasses. Who thought to check? But I can guarantee you on Survivor 2, I tried on every pair of glasses. So I only get caught once.
Question here.
Yes, I wanted to commend Mark for the red herrings that you've put out. I spend an incredible amount of time on the internet, on the bulletin boards, just analyzing every moment of this show. And there are thousands of people out there doing that. And Mark has been brilliant in tossing us lies and deception. And I think the most brilliant one was in the first season. There was a piece of information from the book, the coming book that was released, claiming that Richard Hatch did not win. And everybody on the internet bought it, totally bought it. And the whole time we're discussing who was going to win and who wasn't, we always eliminated Richard because this little piece of information had come to us. And I just want to commend you on the brilliance of that. And can you give us any little gossip that I can go back with for the next one?
The best thing I can tell you, honestly, never believe a word I say. I'll do anything to protect my show.
We have time for 2 more questions. One right here, and we'll have a question right on the side over here. Question right up here.
I was just going to say that it seems to me that the real prize is the celebritydom, is that a word? That comes with, I'm dumb, that comes with winning. It's not the $1 million after taxes. And so I was wondering if Richard could talk a little bit about what the show has meant for him and how long are you going to ride the wave.
Well, believe me, it's not just riding. It's a lot of work. It's an interesting situation to be in for me. I consider myself pretty much an explorer, and I really enjoy trying new things. So this has been phenomenal, and I've loved it. But it could really be overwhelming for somebody that wasn't prepared for it, I think. It's a bizarre world for me right now, and it's still ongoing. I appreciate the opportunities. It's tough. I mean, I'm doing so many different things, and all of them are designed in my own mind to figure out what it is that I'll like doing the most. But all of them seem so fun right now. I'm burning the candle at 4 different ends. And none of this would have taken place were it not for the show. I never grew up thinking I would be in the public eye. I never had designs on being in television or doing anything like that. So I'm trying to learn as quickly as I can and to experience as much as I can while the opportunities still present themselves.
Also, too, I think, the quote-unquote 15 minutes is one thing, but if you're really going to take this opportunity and have any staying power from it, you have to have some skills. And, if Colleen's in a movie, if she's good, then she might get to do another one. If she's not, guys like Sean and Jervis, I don't know how long that'll last. Richard, it's lasting, but how long? 5 years from now, is Jervis still going to be doing Survivor reports? Who knows? But Richard, I mean that with respect. I'm not trying to dog Jervis. I'm trying to say about Richard is that he has skills. The guy, he doesn't just have an audition tape for this new show. He's pretty much going to be one of the guys on it. And the reports are, Hatch is unbelievable. So he is given an opportunity, but he's working his butt off, and he's actually making something of it. He's putting the time in. So at a certain point, I think the celebrity of Survivor goes away, and now it's just him working hard.
And we have a question right over here, yes.
It's going to be a Susan question, a two-parter. Susan gave one of the most horrible, gut-wrenching speeches at the end there, and I fully expected she was going to wake up the next morning being the most hated person in the world, and she wasn't. And I find that interesting, and I wonder if you have any thoughts about that. And second of all, did you have any idea that she was going to do that?
Well, I'll tell you this. On day 30, whatever was that, 30 or 32? No, that was it. Yeah, it was day 39. I was miserable. I was tired. I was tired of all these people. I was tired of Mark, and I'm sitting there 3 feet away from Sue going, oh, that's great. Yes, tell her. Yes, I wish I'd have said that, So I think it's hard to appreciate how tired you are on day 39. These guys, when Richard won, he just went, he put his hands in his face and he just put his head down, and I could see it was like, I'm done. And so that's just cathartic, Nobody held anything against Sue, the next day. That just felt really good.
Not while it was happening. All I could think was shut up, because she's going to make the people who were voting feel sorry for Kelly, and I was going to lose votes.
I must say, I really enjoyed it while it was happening. It was great television. And what happened was, that afternoon, Sue, everyone was thinking about that night's tribal council, and I was hanging out with the jury. And the rule was going to be, if you remember, Jeff, it was going to be like a court case. You can ask questions of the people in the dock, if you like. And Sue said, I don't want to ask these people anything. I've spent 38 days with these people. What do I want to ask them? I know everything about these people. I just want to make a statement. And I said, what kind of statement? She said, well, I've been thinking, I have a lot to say. He's a snake and she's a rat. And I was like, whoa. I said, so, you know what? I don't mind you making a statement. It doesn't really matter to me. Just don't, embarrass yourself or us too much. And by that, not what she says, have a point, have a beginning, middle, and end, keep it into a reasonable length, and be kind of clear on what you're going to say, she said, I said, and then, I'll make it same for everybody. So that's Jeff and I spoke, and I said, okay, Jeff, let's change what we were going to say tonight. Let's just say you have two choices. You can ask a question or make a statement. And, so I knew hers would be slightly interesting, but I had no idea what was coming. and remember this is the woman who basically messed up almost every statement in the English language you could possibly say, except for that one. It's like, what's that great?
Well, Mark and your whole staff, you've changed the rules of television for the 21st century, and we want to thank you and Rich and Jeff for being here to end our Paley Festival. Thank you very much.